Hello, hello. Welcome to our next episode of No Lids, No Limits. We're actually taking a little bit of a summer break because Eric is actually busy on the road all summer long. So I'll be republishing some of our favorite episodes as a feature for the next couple of episode drops. Maybe we'll slip an AI generated episode in there at some point as well. But in the meantime, I want to just bring back our episode number 10. It's was one of our favorite episodes from our fans, talking about ERP systems with our guest, Andy Pratico. So here it is. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode number 10 of No Lids, No Limits. Today, I'm joined here by Andy Pratico, a good friend of mine with experience in ERP systems. And Andy, a quick intro about yourself.
Sure. I've been in the business for ERP software for manufacturers all my life. Well, not quite all my life, since 1981, which is a long time. And I worked all over North America, 2/3 of the U.S. states. I lived in the U.S. for 11 years. And 8/10 of the Canadian provinces, not PEI nor Newfoundland. So pretty much everywhere. And I worked with thousands of manufacturers. And I also help people uncover the truth about ERPs before they buy. So it's kind of a nice little side thing.
All right. Again, I'm Kin. My partner Eric is taking a break this week in the recording, so I've got Andy here to tell us a little bit more about ERP systems. Andy, one of the things that some of our audience have asked is, when it comes to buying an ERP system, it's certainly not an easy choice by any stretch, and it's a heavy capital investment often viewed by a lot of companies and CFOs. Is the price for an ERP system usually the full amount that they need to budget for? I mean, what do they need to think of from a money perspective?
What should they think about from a money perspective? Well, that's, how long is a piece of string? Everything depends upon the size of the company, what the challenges are trying to overcome, what the value of that challenge is.
When I was putting in ERP systems, my principals would ask me, what do we need a budget for? How much is it going to cost me? Every ERP vendor is going to be tasked with getting a RFQ to submit your bid for some number.
And how is it possible every one of them quotes something different?
That's right.
Well, commonly companies like yourself they'll do a combination of things. The intelligent ones will calculate an ROI, what they think they're going to receive as a benefit from the ERP once they go live. And one of the tools I provide my clients is an ROI calculator. So, it helps them justify that investment. But more times than not, what companies will do is they will ask ERP salespeople how much. Like they'll say, well, listen, my company's 100 employees. We make X, Y, and Z. We needed to do ABC. How much should I budget? But, the problem with that is that ERP salespeople don't want to lose the opportunity because they're too expensive. So they tend to lowball. And the sad result is that 40% of all implementations end up costing double or more than the original budget, which, of course, the person who requested or defined the budget originally now has his, neck on the.
That's right. And I guess my experience being more on the operational side of things is that when ERP systems get put in, besides the money budget, there's also the time budget. We often given an expectation, you're going to be going live in 90 days, or you're going to be running this no problem in 6 months.
Did you say 90 days or 9 days?
90 days.
Okay. You know what the reality is? Just like the budget, the time to implement is directly relational to the customer's responsibilities and experience. ERP companies often will come in with a fire hose. How fast can you drink? And of course, there's pushback right away. An ERP salesperson that says you can go live in 90 days is an ERP salesperson. They're promising the moon and they're hoping the customer will say yes. Because once they say yes, they don't have to worry about it. They've got their commission. The reality is a realistic implementation time and I'm just generalizing because every company is unique. Sophistication, expertise, if they've done it before, all those factors come in. But I would always estimate between 9 and 12 months. Not
9 to 12
months.
months sounds a lot more reasonable given my experience as well. The When I think of an ERP implementation, I always find it puzzling, having gone through a couple of these projects,
Yeah.
how an ERP salesperson.
I was going to say, what was your conversations with ERP salespeople in the past?
Certainly not the same one as the you and I had.
Say I'm a unicorn, so
You do. And this is why, I love to have the conversation with you, with our audience, Andy, is you bring a whole different perspective. And I think it's a very honest perspective of what ERP really should be. And
Ken, when I first got in the business back years and years, and back when I was as good looking as you with beautiful hair and all that, I used to tell my clients the same thing my bosses told me to tell them, or at least my interpretation of what my bosses told me. And I wasn't ever sure if it was accurate or not. Today, and you know what? After about 6 months of being in the business back in 1981, actually not 6 months, it probably took multiple years before I realized that everybody that ever bought an ERP didn't like me anymore. And the reason why is because I didn't know what I was saying. I was a parent. Today, I know what I'm saying. I've interviewed hundreds of companies, manufacturers on their current ERPs, pros and cons. So I know what the facts and truth is. If the ERP I work with does not a fit, I will tell you immediately. Because I don't want you calling me up in the middle of dinner screaming that it's not doing what you promised. There's no way. I will point you to the systems that are a fit every time.
my experience in ERP systems is that they defined what the company is and how the company operates. The ERP is the backbone of every
Yes.
company. And
Yes.
but the way I see that is the
It
ERP
keeps the
doesn't
score.
exactly. The ERP doesn't define the company, but the company should define the ERP that's required. And that's one perspective I've learned years ago, maybe your predecessors. What is your take on that? Why do many companies see ERP systems the wrong way?
I've been in the business a long time, and I understand how people think and how they decide on these things, and I understand how they get fooled. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but most ERP salespeople only are concerned about one thing, and that's getting a commission. And if they get a commission, they're feeling like they got a touchdown, and hallelujah, life is good. But you know what they say about the ERP satisfaction in the industry? 73.8% of companies do not like the current ERP they have right now. I believe a big reason is because of those salespeople that have the motive sell towards getting a commission, as opposed to caring about what the customer needs and what the customer can benefit from. Yes, some ERPs become the backbone, and some ERPs are not flexible. Therefore, you need to change your processes to what the ERP can and cannot do. Other systems are a little more flexible these days. They have this, what they call it, low code, no code functionality, where you can modify how the software works. But there's still pros and cons with all of these pitches. And that's a sales pitch. So yes, the ERP becomes a backbone. However, you want to be able to have the flexibility to adjust that backbone to your specific requirements.
A good point is the implementation of an ERP system definitely needs a lot of clean data, as they all say. But no company ever has the quote unquote clean data. What is a strategy to ensure that the implementation becomes successful from a data cleanliness perspective?
Well, it's interesting because, companies will defend their clean data and say, oh no, ours is clean. And like you say, none is clean, because clean it's not gray, it's black or white. Companies will spend a lot of time cleaning their data before they even get involved with ERP, because they think that's a priority. It's best to find the ERP company you want to work with, the ERP system integrator you want to work with, and let them help you towards the cleaning of data. Usually you're going to export that data into something anyone can access, like Excel or one of those types of things. And then you scan the data to see if it looks reasonable or not, or if there's anything that stands out. Before you go live on any ERP, yes, your data needs to be clean. But it doesn't need to be before you start investigating. It can be during the implementation.
Right. When it comes to ERP systems, a lot of companies look for that return on investment, the ROI.
Right.
ROI is a tough thing I've always found to justify an ERP system, because really, if you have a great ERP system, your company's processes should be completely streamlined at that point. I mean, what is the ROI for an ERP system?
Well, I have tools that I give my clients. They call me the ERP Santa Claus because I give away gifts all the time. One of the tools I give away is an ROI calculator. It empirically will define what you hope or expect the return to be 6 months, 12 months, 24 months before you get some type of return. The reality is that it's theoretical. In ROI, everyone tries to empirically define what the potential is, because how else can you justify the senior management or the owners to invest? But the reality is that some systems do have functionality that can cause a return on investment. For example, improve shop scheduling.
Yes.
If you're able to improve shop scheduling without increasing overhead, you will get a return on investment because you're basically adding to your bottom line, right? If you're able to ship more without increasing overhead, that's increased profit, ROI. However, that's an exception because very few ERPs, well, they all say they can do shop scheduling. Very few of them ever get it going because it requires so much detail and accuracy and commitment for in and out, the data in and out, right? You have to be on top of it all the time. It has to be 100%, or else the schedule is totally out the door. And there's other ways that you can see a benefit, like, for example, lower inventory carrying costs, higher profit on quotes, orders, depending upon all kinds of factors. But that's still all theoretical. Whenever I give out my tool on doing the ROI calculation, I always tell them, please do not exaggerate. Do not exacerbate what you believe will be the benefit. Minimize. Because you know what? Once you do those calculations and they extrapolate, the benefit is crazy good. But that is dependent upon the company. So always try to keep your exaggeration of an ROI in check, because your owners are going to be mad when you don't achieve those numbers, or they're not going to believe. If you exaggerate, they're not going to believe the numbers anyway.
That's absolutely true. I always think of every engineering project, ERP implementation from a better, faster, cheaper perspective.
Yeah.
We see that triangle: better, faster, cheaper.
Yeah.
And you can have any two, but never the third.
Yes. Don't you love that expression? You can have two. Which two you want? But everybody wants all three.
How do you see a successful ERP implementation when it comes to better, faster, cheaper? Are we trying to go for all three? Are we trying to achieve something that's almost impossible? Or is it actually possible?
That's a very esoteric question. Better, faster, cheaper. Well, every project manager knows you can only pick two of those, right?
That's right.
The problem is not everybody's a project manager. So they always think, and when people are evaluating ERPs, you know what the number one thing the decision about one they buy is which one looks the easiest. And the reason why is because they're so complex, they assume they all do the same thing. And the biggest fear that people have about ERPs or purchasing or implementing an ERP is, will I be able to learn it? Because especially old people like me, people with no hair and stuff, they don't want to learn new stuff. So it's got to be easy. It's got to be logical. It's got to be simple. So how do you establish whether it's easy or simple? By watching demos, right? And guess what? Demos last a couple hours. It takes you a couple years before you're fluent with an ERP. So we're making those assumptions on what's easiest in a vacuum. We don't have any idea at all. And besides, it depends on who's giving the demo. Commonly, these people that give demos are professionals. They're excellent at giving demos to make the software look like it does everything and super simple. But the fact is, the title of the person who gives you a demo is a pre-sales consultant. You know what the definition of a pre-sales consultant is, Ken?
What's that?
Someone you'll never see again after you sign the contract.
Very good.
And that's a fact, right? I mean, when I'm presenting the software, I used to be able to present the software myself, but I don't do that anymore because I expect people to question when a salesperson's giving you a demo. Right. And really, I don't want them to question. I want them to believe what I'm telling them. So if you do sift through a demo, you should get a trainer to show you the demo. The person you'll work with after you buy, because they have skin in the game. But the best person to talk to would be companies that are similar to yourself already using that software. Because they're past the learning curve. My grandma always said, learn from somebody else's mistakes, right? I mean,
absolutely.
I'm sure your grandma told you the same thing.
Yes, I love that. I think with a lot of ERP systems now, you touched on a little bit earlier about, this aspect of coding or customization.
Yeah, yeah.
In this day and age where, each business seems to have their own nuance, each industry has their own nuance, to what degree, should someone looking at a ERP system be considering, a long path of customization to tailor fit any off-the-shelf ERP package to their specific needs?
Well, in this day and age, that answer should be zero. However, that's never not the case because, like you say, every company is unique. Every company has unique requirements. Every company doesn't want to change the way how they do things because, again, it's that not wanting to learn new stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, the deeper you get into using an ERP, the more you want to personalize it and improve it and make it do what you want it to do. So you have these ones today that, like that expression I said, low code, no code, but it's not customizing the source code. It's customizing how the system reacts and how it looks. So that's a good first step to not have to customize. I always recommend find a system that's end to end, that does it all without customizing. Step one. If that's not possible, then you might have to look at bolt-ons or third-party, they call them ISVs, independent software vendors, that fill in those gaps. But if you can find one that's off the shelf that does it all, I mean, it's probably more expensive. That's the reason why people don't buy it, because everyone, there's two things. By the way, I mentioned they always buy the prettiest one or the easiest one. They also buy the cheapest one, right? Because they think they're all the same. Right? The only difference is the price, which is not the case. But anyways, you really want to try to find something that does it all in one integrated system because that's going to be your least amount of challenges.
Yeah, that's very true. When it comes to successfully putting in an ERP system in a company, we often find that in within the company, the teams kind of all sort of want to own the project, and this might be sometimes the IT team, sometimes the finance team, sometimes the operations team. Do you find that which one of those three teams tend to have better success at leading the company into a successful implementation?
Well, as far as a black and white answer, operations. Companies often will assign an IT person because, hey, what the heck? They work with software, right? Or an
That's right.
accounting person because, hey, what the heck? They already work with an accounting system, right? But if you were only wanting an accounting system, you wouldn't be buying an ERP. Operations is where the unique parts come in. I mean, every system can do accounting fine. I mean, there's going to be preferences, and I can do an ASTRAL balance a little bit easier with this one. It's not going to make any difference in the company. It'll make a difference with that accounting person, or it might make a difference with that IT person, but it doesn't make a big difference in the entire enterprise. The operations people, and not to say that the IT and accounting shouldn't be involved. Yeah, they get their say, but the operation people or the staffing are the ones that are going to make a difference in, like we said, profitability or return on investment, because they're the ones that know where the real value from an ERP is. Because I mean, they're the ones that are doing all the redundant and duplicate entry. They're the ones with those silos today, usually, right? Data silos. So yeah, definitely operations is where you want to have the person leading. Someone that knows everything about the business is the point, right?
Andy, thank you for that note, because coming from an operations background, in the successful implementations, the team really kind of let the operations lead,
But that doesn't happen all the time, I'll tell you.
No, that's true.
Because what does operations know about computers?
It is so challenging at times to get companies and the leadership to understand the challenges of ERP implementations.
My goodness.
Yeah, I'm glad I got your vote there. Thank you very much, Andy. Well, Andy, we're coming towards the end of our podcast session, but if there was any wise words you want to leave the audience with as far as the path towards a successful ERP implementation, what would those be?
Well, first off, people will say all ERPs are the same, and they're not, but they all generally do the same thing. If you look at the bell curve, they're all going to be doing the 80%. It's the ones on the sides which makes each one unique, the skinny part. But if you purchase the best ERP in the world and you implement it poorly, you're going to fail. You might even go out of business. If you purchase the worst ERP in the world and implement it perfectly, so spend and emphasize your time on evaluating and understanding and making sure you're comfortable with the system integrator, with the people that are going to help you implement. Because really, it has all to do with streamlining processes. You mentioned that earlier. They think that they're buying an ERP and it'll do that automatically. It will not. The system integrator will help you streamline those processes. And if you don't streamline your processes, I'll tell you right now, and you buy an ERP hoping it does, all you're going to do is speed up your existing problems. You're going to put a pretty screen in front of your current issues. You're never going to fix them. What you want to do, and you know, some people will say, kind of like the data conversion thing, the data cleaning thing, I'll do it before I look. I always think it's best to streamline your processes during the implementation, because the software, whichever one you go with, is going to constrain what you can and cannot do. So if you streamline your processes before, you're going to have to do it again. If you do it all at the same time, you only have to do it once. So really, they say 80% of all ERP success is in relation to the system integrator, the implementer you work with. Only 20% is regarding the software functionality. Yet we spend all of our time evaluating a system looking at functionality. So my recommendation is evaluate the company you're going to work with and make sure they have the skills and the ability to improve your processes towards the success and the results you want.
And those are very wise words, Andy. My experience obviously confirms absolutely that as part of a successful ERP implementation is all about really the introversion of looking at your own processes and where things aren't working well, improve those, and then bring the ERP in to help you reinforce that new improved process. And that's really where the big success
well, you're familiar with the concept of lean manufacturing, right? Eliminating waste. And that's what you really want to do. I mean, will the software eliminate waste? Not unless you define it that way.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end of our episode. So thank you very much, Andy, for your input and your perspective on all this. I want to reach out to the audience and ask them to drop us a comment or feedback on what you think and your questions about ERP. Andy, with your permission, can I put your contact if the audience want to reach out directly to you, maybe an email?
Absolutely. Or my LinkedIn
or LinkedIn profile. All right.
You know, I'll just end with one thing. You know, I mentioned that if the software I work with does not fit, I will tell you. If you go to my LinkedIn profile, go to the left-hand column and you scroll to the bottom, it says recommendations. There's about 30 odd recommendations on my LinkedIn profile saying how much they appreciated the advice I gave them, and none of them ever bought from me.
Andy, I really appreciate it for joining this episode of No Lids, No Limits. Thank you to the audience, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that rerun of our episode number 10 with Andy Pratico. And if you have any questions or comments about ERP systems or any challenges you've experienced with your ERP system, do drop us a comment and give us some feedback. We'll be happy to answer your question and engage in a conversation. So look forward to engaging with you guys at the next episode. Thank you very much for listening or viewing our episode.